what I was going to ask you is, like, speaking of farms, for a young idiot like me who tries to educate himself but can't always do so in terms of macroeconomics, how does the farm tariffs affect people in Iowa?
Yeah.
The farmers in Iowa.
Yeah, so it goes beyond just the tariffs, and I'll give you a little bit of my spiel right here. There's three things that our federal government right now are attacking our district when it comes to agriculture. The first is market consolidation. And when I talk about it, it means like when multiple companies merge together and
So
buy
like
each other.
Bayer buying Monsanto?
Exactly, and that's exactly it. And so that shrinks the market. And so anytime you take a market option out of the equation, it adds costs and pressure to the farmer. So cost of productions are going up. You see the seed prices have tripled in the last 20 years. And part of it's technology, but also there's only like 3 or 4 seed companies anymore, and there's only like 3 or 4 fertilizer companies anymore.
Yeah.
So it really limits, and they set the price where there's farmers can't find another option. So that's one thing, and so there'd be antitrust laws that are already on the books. We're just not enforcing them.
Okay.
The second thing is the renewable fuel standard, which for ethanol. So the big thing, Trump campaigned on E15 year round.
Yeah.
I'm for that, and that's kind of what the standard already says. So it's not like he's creating something that's not already like been established.
Yeah.
It just needs to be enforced. But the other side of it, so he's promoting that right now, but there's a whole backside to it where the oil industry pretty much runs the EPA and what the renewable fuel standard is right now. And so there's small refinery waivers, and so the reason there's these waivers is to let like a small oil refinery saying, you know what, we can't blend our certain percentage because it will hurt us economically too much. So they wanted to say, hey, if it's going to be too burden for you to make any money off it or any profit off it, here's a waiver for you. But now these small refinery waivers are being used by and abused by a lot of bigger ones.
Yeah,
and so what that has allowed is the renewable fuel standard allows for I believe it's 15 billion bushels of corn. Is it bushels or gallons? No, I'm sorry. 15 billion gallons of ethanol to be in the fuel supply. But with these small refinery waivers, that has left what corn should be used right now. It's left almost 900 billion bushels of corn to be left in the bin. And so that carryover has depressed corn prices because they're left in the bin instead of being used. So there's more supply, and it's a little wonky, but because of that, it's depressed corn prices right now by up to 40 cents a bushel.
Wow.
So that's our own government attacking our corn prices and siding with big oil rather than Iowa farmers. And the two big people who are anti-ethanol are oil companies and Ted Cruz, because he's funded mostly by oil companies.
Yeah.
So Representative Steve King, when he endorsed Ted Cruz in 2016 for the president, that's a blatant disrespect to the ethanol farmers or the corn farmers and ethanol industry right here in our own district.
So okay, so when we're talking about incentivizing technology and technology growth in Iowa, I don't think of that personally as just an Iowa thing. I believe in incentivizing technology and technology growth nationwide.
Right.
But I guess in terms of moving into the future, how do we balance the increased attention paid to technology and technology development, especially in terms of electric powered cars like Tesla, where the government has given Tesla millions and millions of dollars in subsidies, which has been able to create like this new future for cars in the automotive industry, and then also I guess protecting or maybe finding a way for Iowa farmers and ethanol to become viable in this this future economy of electric cars.
So here's a huge thing: is there's been a lot of research in what we can do with corn and other crops, and that research is being cut right now by the federal government, and so So what's next on the forefront for farmers? It's we don't know because there's a lot of things being cut, but like the research is being cut. But I did want to get into the tariffs part.
Okay,
That's the third component. So to sum that all up right now, we're borrowing money from China to give to our farmers, not to sell their products to China right now.
Wow.
And that doesn't make much sense.
No.
And you ask any farmer, they want trade, they don't want aid. And so you hear trade, not aid, all the time. So because we don't have that market right now, bean prices and pork prices are just dropping, and because there's too much production.
Yeah.
And so that's that's a huge issue. And so now it took about 30 years for us to get into China with our soybeans.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not easy. And you have what's called the global supply chain. So like once you establish yourself in there, it's easy because like the infrastructure to bring your product out there, it's hard to switch and stuff. But now they're looking at South America.
Yeah.
And so for us, if they start using South America and the infrastructure's there, what incentives is it for them to come back here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And so getting back into markets is not as easy as like just like saying, oh yeah, we're going to sign this again. We're going to negotiate this. And like you hear like little countries like, oh, Taiwan's going to take some soybeans. You know what? That's great. Absolutely great. But
well, that's why they call him Soey Steve. Did you see that? Did you see that thing he put out?
Well,
yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: we're trying to re-sign LeBron, get into role player. You know, that's not our goal.
Yeah.
And so you look at China's looking down to South America. Who's down there in South America helping those farmers? It's the same multinational companies, corporations that are here, and so they don't have loyalty to the Iowa farmer. No. So right now we need leadership, and we need to figure out, and Iowa farmers need to find who's going to be fighting for them rather than fighting for the global farm system. And I think that's one thing that King is very weak on. And we called him out in that in the Sioux City Journal, and it was pretty clear the distinction between himself and myself.